Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight and actually getting to know a little bit about the knowledge exchange here. So I'm actually continuing on the series of interviewing of some of our actual staff, the heart of TKE, and what we're all about. So today I actually have here Catherine with us to kind of join and give a little bit of her role, her background, and then actually kind of particularly why and TKE she's so fond of. So just to do a little introduction again for everyone who hasn't maybe seen me, my name is Michael here. I actually am somewhat of a jack of all trades, working as a development lead for them. Right now, I'm actually hoping to kickstart a little podcast, but most importantly, I just want to have a chance to sit down with everyone, get a video going along, and actually just share the people who are working behind this great organization that I get to be actually a part of. So to get us kick-started, feel free to kind of talk about your background. I know from my background, I work in IT. I'm actually a person who worked up from no college degrees. I actually just have a high school background, but been able to actually been fortunate with the people I've met in my life, some mentors along the way, a lot of hardships, but learn a great deal. And I really believe that education is something to move forward with, regardless title, certificate or not. You can still learn from life. So I'm really grateful for like this organization being able to pay that forward with everyone that we work with. So feel free to tell me about your background, Catherine.
Yeah, so I've gone on several different paths. I would say the one that's most related to TKA is my teaching background. So I actually got a graduate degree in elementary education, and I had actually started out in counseling, and I kind of wish I had stuck with that because I feel like that suits my personality more because it's one-on-one, and I'm kind of introverted. So like being in front of a classroom all the time, the whole school week was a little bit much for me. And so like I like helping people, but I just found that wasn't really the right path for me. So I have done marketing for some nonprofits and actually met Angie at a meetup. It was the name of the meetup was called Find Your Tribe, which is cool because we're kind of having like a theme around the word tribe lately, like tribal knowledge and things like that. And I really feel like I've connected with people that are like me and have high standards and want to help people and build a community. It's more than just a service. So yeah, that's how I connected with Angie. And I've also done a couple of other different things. Like I've been a floral designer, and that's what I was doing while I was in school for teaching. Bartender. I've been an administrative assistant, and then most recently marketing.
Wow, that's pretty. That's amazing. Yeah, I've like kind of talk about like a little bit of my background. Even though I work strong in IT and kind of having kind of help in charge of a few support teams. Before I was working like McDonald's to start off with, if everyone hasn't had like a retail job or a fast food job, it's definitely a great way to kind of get your toe wet initially. But after that, I do not recommend it. And I feel absolutely like after working those rules, there's just a much more appreciation for people who like work in fast food and retail and so forth. Um,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like my floral job, I started out at $9 an hour, and I mean, you're working with customers, so you're just dealing with people who come into the store a lot and a lot of complaints and things like that. I feel like it gives you a good perspective as far as like what the world is like, and it gives you an idea of, or it gives you more motivation for getting skills to get a better job. And so, like, I mean, some people go to school and then right out of school they get a high paying job, like a white collar kind of job, and I feel like that kind of leaves out that perspective where you don't know what it's like to work really hard and like not make a lot of money. And I feel like that's also a part of what TK is about, like helping the disadvantaged and people who don't have like the money to go ahead and shell out for college and things like that, or like more expensive tutors because the prices of tutoring have gone up pretty high. So
yeah, I'm actually not. I mean, I think I had like tutoring once when I was like doing math in high school, which was not my best. Well, I would say my best class was a class I kind of slacked off quite a bit, then kind of didn't get into, and I went before like doing like algebra two, then having to drop back to like intermediate algebra. It was like kind of figure out where I really wanted to pace myself. So I kind of understand like what it takes to kind of go tutoring. Even now, my little sister is actually getting tutoring help from my brother who has like a chemical engineering. So he's going through like the chemistry books with them, understanding like the interactions and the compounds and all those fun polymers and things like that at her age in high school right now.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so like I said, it's great to have a chance to kind of like tutor everyone and pay it forward. I mean, I believe also in like an equal playing field at the very least. So like if it's everyone gets the same opportunities, then I really believe that we will actually get to see a lot of like kind of like humanity just kind of shine. I mean, we have so many like thanks to like YouTube and social media, you can see some really amazing people doing some amazing things in like different corners of the world. So that's kind of why I kind of saw TK was doing that at a local level here, and then like they were actually growing rapidly over the year. In fact, if you can kind of like elaborate, like because you've seen TK, might guess, grow up throughout last year, and kind of your roles and involvement with TK during that time.
Yeah, sure. So I actually started out on the grant committee because I do like writing and I've done copywriting for marketing and just like throughout my different career paths, I've realized, okay, writing is actually what has been like the staple in my life, like the thing that's kind of been steady and the thing that I'm actually better at and I like to do. So I started out there, but kind of decided that I wanted to help with the marketing more, just because I have that background already, instead of like learning a whole other thing. Because I have a tendency to want to learn everything, and then it kind of too thin. So I was like, you know what, for once, just stick with what you know, and like follow on that path. So I went to the marketing because I have been doing that over the past few years, and so a lot of that is self-taught. There's, like you said, there's so much that you can learn on the internet. I've taken some online classes like in UX design, so that's more like graphic design related, but it helps with digital marketing and like with my role at TKE because we're working on the website, so I'm able to give suggestions for that about like how people are kind of navigating through it. Yeah, and then I'm taking some copywriting courses and just kind of like grabbing whatever I can online. There's lots of information. So I feel like that helps level the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's great because I mean, as much as there's so much data out there, actually having someone there to help kind of walk you through the steps of life and who've kind of been ahead of you to kind of navigate like the minefield that is life essentially.
Yeah.
So like what have you seen in like more like the tutors, what they've been able to supply to the students? I've actually personally have yet to really see kind of like the one, but I've only ever felt from what Jimmy has kind of helped with. So many of the tutorings kind of checking in, a lot of the engagement that you guys been interacting with the students over time and the families as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually gotten to see a lot of the tutoring, and I would like to see more of that. I worked some with Kelly, who's a tutor, and she's also a teacher. And so we worked on the Canvas webinar, and Canvas is a platform for virtual learning for kids in school right now because of COVID. So that's kind of been a hurdle for parents and families and for the kids also, because not only do the kids have to learn it, their parents have to figure out how to communicate with the teachers also. So
Yeah, actually, yeah, it is a crazy time. I mean, since what beginning of 2020, we thought going through just living our everyday lives, it was like a smidge of what COVID was about, and then it rapidly actually grew quickly just within like weeks of the news from hearing it get coming out, and suddenly everyone's rapidly trying to work from home, trying to play it safe, keep their distancing. And yet, in this time of like a year later, the TKE actually grew. I mean, what do you feel like is that like charm of TK that's actually allowed us to kind of grow from last year, even during a crazy time that is a pandemic? What actually drives you to be part of TKE?
yeah, I mean, I would say that a lot of it has to do with, I mean, obviously with Jimmy and Angie, because I mean, they're doing so much. I mean, they have their full-time jobs already, and then they're doing this on the side, and they're so driven and dedicated. So I feel like that kind of like sets the standard for how everyone else should be. And I think um, because they're like that, they're able to pick people in their lives that have the same kind of standards. And so it's a lot of like-minded people. And so I think it has a lot to do with that. And I mean, some of it might just be the fact that everything is virtual now that's allowed us to kind of grow, because we do offer virtual tutoring.
How do you feel like it being virtual has it like made it better, kind of like in terms of your personal style? For like, I know with like kids, they kind of be very social, but it can be a hard time. And then like from a different perspective, like for me, I love this virtual work from home personally. I have my small group of friends I hang out with and communicate with, and I feel like I just get more productive done in my like home environment where I'm comfortable. Whereas like kids at this age, I mean, honestly, if I was in high school when this happened, I would have been heaven. But as like maybe a younger, it'll be a little bit tougher trying to want to have that energy and being socialized.
Yeah, I think a part of it is just that like a lot of kids need extra help right now because they're not getting what they would normally get in school. So maybe I would think that the families would be looking for something else to supplement. And because I think because it's virtual, then we can meet with anyone, right? So it kind of expands our scope. But kind of back to what you were saying, like about having somebody guide you, I feel like I was pretty privileged growing up. I mean, I went to private school, and I feel like that really gave me a leg up. But I had some different experiences in the schools. Like not all of them were the same. I went to several. The first one that I went to, they ended up closing down because they were running out of money. So it's like that's one aspect of like for-profit school. But I wouldn't say that they had the best standards at all, because I switched to another school. And so this is in middle school, and one of the kids in my class was making fun of me because I didn't know where France and Spain were on the map.
Okay.
And like I'm not sure like what the standards are for middle school now for that kind of thing, but they like that school was definitely more advanced than the other school that I went to. So that proves that, just because it's private doesn't mean that it's better. You may be paying money for the education, but it doesn't mean that it's a quality education. But then I think about my high school education, and that definitely was challenging. Like they really had high standards and pushed you, and I feel like that helped me for college, like especially with writing. I remember getting a lot of C's, and I mean maybe even worse grades in high school because standards were so high. So I feel like it really helps prepare you for the world.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, from my like kind of learning of principles, I mean, it's part of it like kind of like a birds of a feather flock together type of the tribe. The people who you associate with over time can help kind of shape your behaviors and kind of what you actually find yourself doing. Like I said, I've been fortunate to, even though let's see, out of like high school, it's a crazy time in my like past and history. I went to like high school, moved, left home for a bit, couple of years, tried community college for like a semester, then came back. But I was fortunate to have actually some support people from my family at least to kind of help me, kind of support me while they were also going through all their own like financial troubles, and then kind of finding like meeting the right like people. And that's what I think like Tiki has done is creating a place where you could meet all sorts of characters and backgrounds and actually share that experience. I mean, from what I've understood, like not only do we just do like tutoring and just going over the STEM resources, they actually do a little bit of like quality and some maybe some life teachings along the way. Is there anything that you would have thought of? Because actually, I'm still thinking about the students laughing at you about France and Spain. And I'm like, people were laughing at me as a kid because they're as kids, yeah, we're pretty like cruel because we're just blunt. We don't have any filters yet. So I was like, I was just a big kid always growing up. So like having the standard be France and Spain, I would have preferred them. Well, I'd rather be laughed at I didn't know something than for like kind of who I am as a person.
It's such a nerdy thing to be made fun of.
Yeah, that's like if you were like laughing about like D&D and you didn't know what like a druid or an elf or any of those stuff. If you happen to be into D&D, like love the geek culture.
Yeah, like I wasn't cool because I wasn't smart. So like, yeah, that's the kind of culture that you want to strive for, I think.
A little bit better. At least more about your merits than it is about any other type of discrimination. So, at the very least, I mean, by now, do you know where France and Spain is? If you were to look up on a map.
It's one of the things that I made sure to learn after that experience. So, but I feel like, I think one of the special things about TKE is just a feeling of respect, like, coming from the top down. And so I feel like if I have a supervisor or superior who respects me, then I'm definitely going to give that back. And that kind of like sets the stage for how people interact with one another, like as coworkers. So,
yeah, I mean, my experience with Jimmy and Angie is like I know him from a more geek background of a Final Fantasy trading card game, and from that community, and it actually was from different like geek communities. So who play cards? They talk about like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. Some of the environments, depending on it, may not always have been the most healthy, and definitely can be most of the time more toxic. Final Fantasy was actually a community that very much importantly created a group of wholesome, being supportive, and that anything that was kind of toxic, we would immediately like kind of cut it off at the head. And so Jimmy was someone that we played against each other a few times in the tournaments and had some back and forth. Angie was always just playing along to take part of what Jimmy's up to, and she was kind of learning it as well, and she was still a pretty good player. Um, and so, like, I've been kind of monitoring them because they've always like popped in and out of the tournaments. Jimmy was always a serious guy. Like that he wants to win, and he gets very focused. And I was a little bit the opposite, where I am focused, but I like to just chat around, have fun while the conversations are going, just kind of get to know people during it. And that's where I saw Jimmy was kind of he just came in and out. He did focus on his decks, but then he started actually posting on Facebook about starting a nonprofit of TKE, and that was like about a year ago. Like, okay, I just kind of watched it over Facebook. I'm one of those who just kind of lurks about like if you're if you're doing a nonprofit, or if there's an opportunity where I can just, because I do enjoy like anonymously just supporting or helping here and there. And so over the year, I saw him like grow from just them doing some volunteer outwork. I saw last year you guys actually were like planting trees and cleaning up yards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, were you kind of part of that whole initiative, like the volunteer before COVID, when it was still okay to be outside, and I think you guys were, I can't recall, yeah, like had a booth. You guys had to clean up some trees and some parks.
Right. So I joined around the time of COVID, and also I live in a different city than them. So I'm in Richmond and they're in Fredericksburg. So yeah, everything that I've done for them has been for them.
What are some like kind of like highlights or achievements that you kind of seen in TK in their milestones? I heard that they actually had a few quite big milestones along the way. I've only joined the last month or two.
We've definitely grown. I think we have like about, I want to say like 50 volunteers, something like that. At the beginning it was, just a handful. We have like more than doubled in a lot of areas.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And just kind of wrap up a little bit. Since you kind of shared your role in being marketing, you're actually definitely a great help in the operation. I see you're always consistently providing like ideas, contributing, which is what TK is all about. Like, doesn't matter what ideas you have or about what area. Feel free to actually even give us a shout out. We're open, and we're just an open community, just always looking for ways to better ourselves and better those are all around us. Um, but as a kind of like a fun question, and I've kind of maybe asked this here and there to other members, but like you know, everyone as a kid always had something they wanted to be when they actually grew up. I don't think I actually answered my questions last time, but what as a kid growing up and kind of reflecting back, what have you always wanted to be growing up, and is there maybe any advice you have given to your younger self?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to be an acrobat, and I feel like a little part of me still wants to do something like that. Like,
Oh, all right.
I've taken aerial dance lessons before, and I mean, I like to dance. So, like, actually, so when I was 6 years old, like, I was asked that question in a beauty pageant. So I actually won the pageant.
Oh, all right. We got a little Miss Pageant here.
Yeah, I remember, like, even as a 6-year-old, like, saying that answer, and like, I genuinely wanted to be an acrobat, but I remember thinking that it wasn't really practical. So, like, some part of me had already been taught that, like, that's not something that you do. You should want to be like a lawyer or something more practical. Yeah, and so I think that's something to think about as far as like what we teach our kids. I would hope that we want them to still be open-minded, and but kind of guide them in a way that makes them realize like what's involved in a job, like as as you grow up, like you get asked that question a lot, and I feel like it's especially when kids are little, like parents or adults will ask a kid, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" But it's not really a serious question. But I mean, kids internalize that, and so I think that we probably need to give them more guidance rather than just like, "Hey, what's your answer?" And then you think it's more cute, like it's entertainment. So,
yeah, that's true.
That's something that TK is helping with, because we have tutoring and then we have programs for the community. So it's all about like learning as you grow. So
yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, like as growing up, I mean, my culture background is very much deep rooted, and like I said, Southeast Asian. I'm like Chinese is my background, so we have three choices every single time. Is either something doctor, something lawyer, something engineer. Has always been the top three favorites. But for me, I was quite different in terms of like a rebel. Like, I definitely value like education. I valued everything, but I didn't like at that time. Well, it was more of a lazy excuse for me. I didn't like do homework, but I was okay with like doing tests. And then I like showing up classes, and I love talking about it. Like psychology, sociology, all the social sciences were totally my go-to topics. I would love. I mean, understanding behavior, how the mind worked, how the brain fired, and all like the neurons and little bits and the synapses. But like growing up, I always believed like depending on like the system that we are living in, like a lot of it's tied to like finances, and I'd rather be where it's more of guidance. I mean, even now, I wouldn't have expected to be doing a job that I was doing from 10 years ago, and there's always stories like today where people have was it? I think even like one person I've just thinking top of my head, like who's like a celebrity is like Samuel Jackson. Like he didn't become a famous celebrity at like all his life. In fact, he started like acting in his like late 30s, and that's where he actually kind of shot up and became like kind of grew fame. And there's so much like ways we can actually live life. I mean, we can as long as we're adding value to this world. I don't think there's a quite a wrong answer. And hopefully like people can find you like productive in your own words or in your own quirky way. You add something into this world. Just to kind of keep it simple from me growing up, I think I just wanted to play video games, and I'm glad that there is a culture now where you can officially play video games for a living.
So I taught fifth grade in Chicago, and a lot of the kids, I don't know very much about video games at all, but I know that they loved Minecraft.
Yes.
This whole conversation about like what you want to be when you grow up, though, makes me think about a moment that I had with them where they were asking me seriously to tell them like why should they go to college, and they were like, why don't I just work at McDonald's? And it just makes you think, like I grew up thinking I had to be something like my dad, like a lawyer, and then they are probably growing up thinking like, well, why don't I just work at McDonald's? Like it's because of their perspective and their environment. I think it's important to make sure that kids have an open mind about their possibilities, but then also a realistic view, like because kids are. It's just because they're kids doesn't mean that they're dumb. They can understand a lot, and so I think they were seriously asking me to break it down for them. Like, what are the let's talk about financial stuff. Like, why can't I just work at McDonald's? So there's a lot that goes into that question, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I find like if you want to work at McDonald's, if it was, I know there's a hot topic right now about living wage and locations, and that's like I don't want to like kind of deep sidetrack into that.
Other conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, feel free to tune in for like a future podcast when we have talk about like current events, what the living situation, or at least what we believe should be an ideal world in our eyes. Awesome. Then yeah, for those who are checking, thank you again, Catherine, for actually taking your time out, sharing us a little bit about TKE, and definitely informing me about TKE. This has been like a little mini learning experience of what TKE is all about, and the people kind of being on board here. Otherwise, yeah, thank you for tuning in. You guys have a great night.
Thank you, Michael.